This first part is audience participation. Good evening. That's good. Good. Thank you. Welcome to the May 21st, 2018 meeting of the Shawnee Planning Commission. We'll start with roll call. Commissioner Montgomery. Commissioner Roth.
Here.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Commissioner Willoughby.
Here.
Commissioner Beanoff is absent. Commissioner Busby is here. Commissioner Wise.
Here.
Commissioner Braley.
Here.
Commissioner Les Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Mudgett is absent. Commissioner John Smith.
Here.
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. The consent agenda. Items 1 through 10 are listed under the consent items agenda. Unless there is a request to remove one of these items from the consent agenda, the items will be approved in one motion. Is there a request to remove any items from the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Commissioner John Smith?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the items under the consent agenda, items 1 through 10.
Very good. Is there a second? Commissioner Willoughby?
I second it.
The motion is second to approve the consent agenda, items 1 through 10, subject to staff recommendations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. If you're here for the items that were in the consent agenda, you're free to leave now.
All right.
Next items are new business. First item is public hearing for SUP 061805, special use permit request to operate a used motor vehicle sales lot at 6801 Hedge Lane Terrace. Request is submitted by Frank Heck on behalf of Car City Wholesale business owner. Doug?
Good evening, Doug Allman, planning staff. The applicant requests approval to operate a used motor vehicle sales lot at 6801 Hedge Lane Terrace. The property is zoned commercial highway. Automobile sales are allowed in the CH district on approval of a special use permit. Property to the south is zoned PI and contains the city's fire station number 3. Right-of-way for 67th Street is located to the north, while the on-ramp to K7 Highway is located to the east. Property to the west across Hedge Lane Terrace is forest and vacant land that is zoned agricultural. The building was constructed in 1996 and was most recently operated as NACAR Automotive until they outgrew the facility and relocated their operation to Bonner Springs. The applicant intends to lease the site. The rear warehouse portion of the building will be used to detail and service the vehicle fleet prior to sale. The facility has spaces to accommodate 50 cars for sale that will be parked to the west of the building in the improved parking lot. This is in addition to the few vehicles that could be displayed inside the building. The business model focuses on sales of late model cars that are 5 years old or less. On rare occasions, when older model cars are taken in trade as part of a sale, they will be taken directly to the auction and will not remain on site. In addition, the site provides parking for 11 customers, including 2 ADA spaces. Employee parking is provided to the south and east of the existing building. The number of spaces provided is more than adequate for a car lot of this size. The previous dealership had issues with auto delivery drivers parking on the unimproved side and sometimes middle of Hedge Lane Terrace when delivering vehicles to the site. Staff has explained this to the new owner, and they have agreed they will have drivers navigate onto their property to offload the inventory. If this becomes an issue over time, the dealership also has an off-site storage yard in Missouri where deliveries will be made and then driven to the dealership. All signage, including temporary signage, shall meet requirements of SMC 5.64. Sign permit should be obtained from the planning division prior to installation. Approval of the special use permit should cause no detrimental effect upon surrounding properties and should not jeopardize the welfare of adjacent persons or properties. The site is buffered by adjacent rights-of-way and a forested area to the west. Staff recommends approval of SUP 06-18-05, special use permit for Car City Wholesale, the used motor vehicle sales lot located at 6801 Hedge Lane Terrace, subject to the following conditions. For sale vehicle inventory outside the building shall be limited to 50 cars. All vehicles shall be parked on hard surface areas of the site. At no time shall customers, delivery vehicles, or vehicle inventory be allowed to park on Hedge Lane Terrace. In the event vehicle delivery to the site becomes an issue, the owner will have deliveries made at the Missouri storage lot for individual transfer to the dealership. 2, primary inventory at the dealership shall be 5 years old or newer. Cars taken in trade that are more than 10 years old shall not be kept at the dealership. 3, all signage, including any temporary signs, shall meet requirements of SMC 5.64, and permits shall be obtained prior to installation. No balloons, pennants, flags, or other attention-attracting devices shall be permitted to be attached to cars. 4, the business owner shall obtain a business license from the city clerk's office prior to opening the auto dealership. And 5, the special use permit shall be subject to review in 1 year from the date of the approval. That completes our short report.
Thank you, Doug. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Would you come forward and state your name and address up at the microphone up here?
You want the address of the business or my personal address?
Doesn't matter. Either one is fine.
Okay, my name's Matt Reynolds. The business address is 6801 Hedge Lane Terrace, Shawnee, Kansas, 66226.
Terrific. Have you read the staff report and are you in agreement with the conditions of approval?
Yes, sir.
Very fine. Thank you. Does the planning commission have any questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner Braley?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Reynolds, I wonder if we could talk through a little bit about the delivery, because I know staff's talked to you about the challenges we had with the previous owner, and I think that was just a reflection of how successful their business was at the
Right.
time, which was great. I'm encouraged that, you're going to occupy this facility and it's not going to sit vacant. But I guess, in the conversations we had previously, it just didn't seem like it got better. And I wonder, talk through the relationship you have with the delivery drivers. Are they aware prior to arrival what the situation is and what the requirements are?
They are. As a matter of fact, our company right now is doing over 100 vehicles a month anyway, with all of those being dropped and picked up at Manheim. So if the drivers decide they have an issue getting into our lot, we'll just stay with that program.
Okay.
Obviously, we want to get them straight to our lot so we can post them and get them ready. But if it becomes an issue for them, we've already prepared to handle it that way.
Okay.
And then we'll just transport them
Okay.
ourselves.
Because I want to restate, because we do have the fire station there, and there were numerous occasions where even they weren't even parked on the shoulder. They were parked in a lane with a car being unloaded. If those fire trucks need to get
Right.
to a call, I don't want that to delay them being able to do their job.
We don't either, sir.
Okay. And then we have sort of a site issue with that hill crest that kind of comes through, again, coming over that hill, and you're surprised with the delivery. So I just want to make sure, you're on top of it. We're not going to have an
We're on the
issue
same
with it.
page.
Okay, excellent. And it's nice that you do have an alternative plan so that, if that does become an issue, we'll make sure you follow through and have those delivered there.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner Peterson?
I read in the staff report that you are going to be revamping the current parking lot. Is that correct? Or
I don't
changing
think
someone?
so. I think it was already done by Nakpar, who had it previously.
Did I misread something?
If we were going to do anything, it would probably be down the road, and we would probably take that grassy area out of the middle and make it pavement so we could park vehicles there.
I may have
Comment that.
misread something.
I don't remember that being in the staff report, but if it was, it may have been a leftover from the Nakpar.
I may have misread something.
I believe they did actually go in.
They
They
did.
did not mill and overlay. They did a top coat and restripe the lot as part of their occupancy about a year and a half ago.
All right. Well, thank you very much and welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? If not, thank you, Mr. Reynolds, and we're in public hearing on the matter. If anyone wishes to address the commission. If not, then we're in planning commission discussion. Commissioner Braley?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say that I was satisfied with the response that I got from Mr. Reynolds concerning the delivery. I want to be encouraged and optimistic that everything's going to be great in that facility, and you'll be as successful as the previous owner, and another great business will grow here in Shawnee. So thank you.
We're excited as well. I do have one question.
Yes.
One of the things stated on here was vehicles 10 years or older. We do a lot of high-end cars, and sometimes the people purchasing those cars trade in a very old, very expensive show car like a Corvette or a, Stingrays and stuff like that that's worth 60, 70, 80 grand. You're not referring to those types of cars when you say 10 years or older, are
One
you?
thing that you have the option to do, I'm sure that's a very rare occasion.
It is rare.
You have the display area inside the building.
Just
So
keep them
what
in
you
there.
Put inside the building on display.
Perfect.
We honestly don't.
Okay. Just want to make sure we
Regular care
didn't overstep our boundaries. Okay.
Very good, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other commission discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Wise,
Make a motion to approve SUP 06-1805 special use permit for First City Wholesale Automotive Used Motor Vehicle Sales Lot at 6801 Hedgeline Terrace per staff recommendations.
thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Roth? There's a motion and a second to approve SUP 06-1805 special use permit request to operate a used motor vehicle sales lot at 6801 Hedge Lane Terrace. Request submitted by Frank Heck on behalf of Car City Wholesaler. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2, Doug. Public hearing for SUP 07-1805 special use permit request for Forced Leering Station, a commercial child care center at 5416 Martindale Street. Application is filed by Robert Wilkin, owner. Doug?
Again, Doug Allman, planning staff. The applicant requests a special use permit to allow operation of a child care facility with up to 179 children at 5416 Martindale Road. The property is zoned planned industrial and is platted as part of the Millwood Business Park. Child care centers are allowed in industrial business parks with approval of a special use permit. Proposed location was previously used as a kindercare daycare facility that closed after several years of operation. The child care facility will operate from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. The facility will operate Monday through Friday and will care for children between the ages of 6 weeks to 12 years old. Property is located on the west side of Martindale, just north of Johnson Drive. Properties to the north, east, and west are also zoned PI and are also part of the business park. Parcels to the south are zoned a combination of PI and commercial neighborhood. The owner is in the process of making application for their child care license with KDHE. The license will not be issued by the state until completion of final plan review by the state fire marshal. To comply with state requirements, the facility has a large fenced play area that is located to the west of the existing building. The applicant has met and discussed the project with the city fire marshal and has received their local jurisdiction approval notice from the city fire marshal. The owner shall obtain all required state licenses and fire inspections prior to issuance of a business license for the facility, and a copy of the permanent state license shall be provided to the Community Development Department once it is issued. The character of the area will not be changed by use of the property as a child care facility. Duplexes to the west are buffered by approximately 275 feet of open space. Because the facility is a standalone building, the existing driveway approaches and parking lot are set up for convenient drop-off and pickup of children at the front of the building. Approval of the special use permit should have little, if any, detrimental effect upon surrounding properties. The outdoor play area is fenced, and until just recently, the building was used as a child care facility without incidents or complaints. Staff recommends approval of SUP 07-1805 special use permit for the Fleet Early Learning Station, a child care facility to be located at 5416 Martindale, subject to the following conditions. 1, the child care facility will operate primarily from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. The number of children present at the center shall not exceed 179 at any one time. If the permanent license issued by the state reflects a lesser number, then maximum capacity shall be lowered to the number allowed by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. 2, the owner shall obtain and maintain a valid business license from the city clerk's office while the facility is in operation. 3, wall signage is only allowed on the east building elevation. Wall signage may not project above the primary roof line. Any signage installed shall meet requirements of SMC Chapter 5.64, and a sign permit shall be obtained from the planning division prior to installation of signage on the building. 4, the owner shall obtain all required state licenses and fire inspections prior to issuance of a business license. All fire safety improvements required by the Shawnee Fire Department shall be completed prior to issuance of a business license or opening of the facility to the public. A copy of the permanent state license and subsequent annual fire inspection reports shall be submitted to the Planning Division once they are obtained. And 5, review of the special use permit in 1 year.
Thank you, Doug. Is the applicant present? Yes, if you'd come forward and state your, and identify yourself.
My name's Jim Thompson. I'm actually the broker for Mr. Wilkin. He is on his way back from Springfield right this minute. Was hoping to be here, but unfortunately not. The two ladies at the back, one is Mr. Wilkin's wife, who is joint owner, and daughter, who will be running the fleet learning station.
Are you comfortable in answering the question of whether you read the staff report and are in agreement with the conditions of approval?
I did, and they are.
Very fine, thank you. Does the Planning Commission have any questions for the applicant or staff? Commissioner John Smith?
Now, the building sets off from Johnson Drive a bit there. Are you satisfied with the signage being limited to the building in the east part?
Yes, currently there is a sign at the street on Johnson Drive. There will be a monument sign in front of the building as well as a sign on the building, which is consistent with previous usage. There he is. Sorry, Mr. Wilkin is here, so he can.
Sorry about that, thank you.
Mr. Wilk, if you'd state your name and address, we'd appreciate it.
Robert James Wilkin, 13304 West 172nd Street in Overland Park, Kansas.
Very fine. Are there any other questions for applicant or staff on this matter? Commissioner Braley?
Chairman. I'll start out with a question for staff. On the number 1 condition, you use the word operate primarily from 6:30 to 6:30.
That's just a general boilerplate condition. Obviously, if a child's parents are late picking them up, we can't say that they're kicked out or closed, but in general, they close at 6:30. There are some occasions when a parent may not get there until 6:40.
Okay.
So we just say generally. There's no proposal to do Saturday daycare or nighttime daycare or anything like that in this instance.
Okay. Well, that was going to be my next question for Mr. Wilkin then. I know occasionally during the holidays, they might do a parent night out, some daycare so that you can get some shopping done and things like that. Is that going to be a part of your plan to potentially offer that periodically?
Periodically, yes.
Okay. Then question to staff, is that still okay within this condition for them to do?
You'd have to modify the condition. We weren't aware that they're going to have those type of once in a while activities.
Okay.
You could either handle it through changing the condition, or they're also allowed 2 special event permits per year that would be independent of the special use permit. So if they think it's going to happen twice, we can handle it that way.
Okay. Then what would be your response? Do you know how many evenings you might offer as far as parent night out, going beyond the 6:30 hours, and what days those might occur?
We typically just do one around the holiday and Christmas time, and we always send an email to KDHE just to notify.
Okay. So it's not going to be many nights. It'll be one. Okay.
I would just leave the SUP as it is, and if
Okay.
they decide they want to do 1 or 2, we can handle it through a special event.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for applicant or staff? Question, Doug, then if they're going to have these late nights, then they will get another special use permit?
Now, there's 2 distinguishing type of permits. One is a special use permit that they're going through that is a public hearing,
Right.
notification of surrounding property owners. There's this administratively approved permit that's known as a special event permit. That's for up to 2 times a year for a profitable or a normal event, and then they can have up to 2 more nonprofit special events per year. And what we do is review those permits at the staff level. If they're going to have tents, we make sure that the fire marshal does a review to make sure that the exiting and those sort of things are set up appropriately. But they're really just kind of 1 or 2 time a year events. Like a tent sale at Harbor Freight requires a special event permit. It's a good example.
Thank you, Doug. Any other questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner John Smith?
I may be going a little beyond our purview, but have that many children in one place, do you have limited entry to the facility, or what type of security do you have?
We do have limited entry. We have one door. Just because we're licensed for 179 doesn't mean that we have that many at one time. I do hold a license myself that allows me to have that many children in my care through KDHE. We will have a security front door and someone at the front desk at all times, as well as cameras on the outside of the building.
Okay.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? If, I will make a note here, I believe the state has requirements for age groups and how many people have to be there, and you're aware of that and in compliance with that. Terrific. If not, then since this is a public hearing, is there anyone from the audience that wishes to address the commission on this? If not, then we're in commission discussion. Would someone care to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Les Smith?
move we approve a special use permit for Fleet Early Learning Station, a commercial childcare facility at 5416 Martindale Street, subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Is there a second? Commissioner Braley?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Good. There's a motion and a second to approve SUP 071805 special use permit request for Forced Learning Station, a commercial child care facility at 5416 Martindale Street. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you.
Very much.
Item number 3 is a public hearing for SUP 081805 special use permit request for a standalone ITM at Staggs Creek located at 10900 Shawnee Mission Parkway. Application is filed by Generator Studios for Academy Bank owner. Doug?
Good evening, Doug Allman, again, planning staff. Just to orient you where we're talking about, the ITM unit is located in this little bubbled island right here at the corner of the Staggs Creek office building. The applicant requests special use permit approval for a standalone ITM adjacent to the west side of the new Staggs Creek office building. The property is zoned CHO, and the CHO zoning district allows placement of a freestanding ATM with approval of a special use permit. Properties in all surrounding directions adjacent to the ATM are also zoned CHO. A newly improved drainage channel is located to the north. The Staggs Creek office building is located to the east. An open drainage channel and self-storage facility are located to the west. And the Shawnee Mission Parkway frontage road is located to the south. The location of the ITM pad and drive lane was approved with the site plan for the Staggs Creek office project. The special use permit is required now because the bank will not be occupying tenant space in the office building. The lane has been constructed so that it is offset from the main one-way north to south drive aisle so it does not interfere with regular traffic flow. The ITM lane is equipped with a simple canopy to provide weather protection for customers that is similar to the canopy design shown at the time of the original site plan approval. This design includes a flat metal canopy and base constructed of white architectural metal panels. This matches the white architectural panels that are on the exterior of the adjacent office building. Minimal ITM identification and directional signage is included as allowed by code. Because the ITM does not block the primary drive lane, clearance is not required for emergency vehicles. Height of the ITM canopy is approximately 12 feet from finished grade to the canopy roof. The character of the area will not be changed by installation of the ITM. The ITM is located adjacent to a 6-lane arterial road, and other banking facilities and ATM machines are located in the general vicinity. Approval of the special use permit should have little, if any, detrimental effect upon surrounding properties. The site has previously been developed with commercial and office uses, and residential areas are 300 to 500 feet away. Staff recommends approval of SUP 081805 special use permit for the Academy Bank ITM located at 10900 Shawnee Mission Parkway, subject to the following conditions. 1, the ITM and canopy shall be constructed as shown on submitted drawings. 2, the owner shall obtain and maintain a valid business license from the city clerk's office while the ITM is in operation. 3, identification and directional signage on the ITM shall match the submitted drawings. 4, all required permits shall be obtained from the Building Codes Division prior to installation of the ITM and canopy. And 5, review of the special use permit in 1 year. That completes our report.
Thank you, Doug. Is the applicant present? If you'd come forward and state your name and address, please.
Mike Kress, 5300 Bellevue Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri, 64112.
Thank you. Have you read the staff report and are you in agreement with the conditions of approval?
I am.
Thank you. Does the Planning Commission have any questions for the applicant or staff? Commissioner Peterson?
My question is for staff. If you go back to that last picture that was up, I don't know if you can put that up or if I can go do that. I just have a question. If you, it's gotta scoot to the other way.
There it is.
Nope. Other left. Okay, that's the one we're talking about, right?
Yes.
If you go directly beneath it, there's a very similar drawing, and I'm just curious what that is. Because it appears as if there's going to be 2 islands.
There is the potential for 2 there. A site plan was approved that showed 2 ATMs.
But there's not one there at this moment.
Correct. There may be an application for a second standalone. I think the intent was originally that they were going to get a bank tenant for that, and obviously they would have needed a drive-through teller lane. They went to the risk of building the building without having it leased, and so they were kind of guessing. But it is set up and it's out of the way at least. It's not a traffic concern for staff.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Wise?
Question for staff. On those islands, have those actually been constructed? Are the curbs poured the way you see them in the plan now?
Yes, on that engineered plan, they are in place.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant or staff? If not, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kress. Since this is a public hearing, is there anyone who wishes to speak on this matter? Seeing none, then we are in Planning Commission discussion. No further discussion. Would someone care to make a motion? Commissioner Montgomery?
I'd make a motion that we approve SUP-08-81-05, special use permit request for standalone ITM at the Staggs Creek Development located 10900 Shawnee Mission Parkway.
Is there a second on the motion?
For staff
Oh, sorry.
recommendations.
Commissioner Willoughby?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second to approve SUP 08-1805 special use permit request for standalone ITM at Staggs Creek located at 10900 Shawnee Mission Parkway. Application by Generator Studios for Academy Bank. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. Item 4, public hearing, PUD 01-1805, rezoning from planned unit development mixed residential and planned unit developed mixed use to planned unit development mixed residential located approximately at 6,000 to 6,100 blocks of Plum Road. Application is filed by Schlegel and Schlegel, excuse me. Schlegel? Thank you. Schlegel and Associates for Veterans Park Senior Village LLC developer. My apologies for getting it wrong, gentlemen.
Oh, no, it's very easy.
It was easy for me, I can assure you. Mark?
Good evening, Mark Zilsdorf, the planning staff. The subject property is located west of Plum Road and north of 62nd Street. The property was zoned in August of 2014 to a combination of PUD-MX and PUD-MR for the Cobblestone Planned Unit Development Project. Cobblestone was approved to include patio homes, senior living, apartments, and office retail space. The property owner decided to not move forward with the proposed development. And then in 2015, another developer proposed to rezone all the property to PUD-MR for 312 market rate apartment units and 14 buildings. The governing body ultimately denied the rezoning request. Within any planned unit development, the property zoning is tied to the specific uses and building configurations as shown on the plan. Therefore, the zoning and the development plan of the original Cobblestone project is still in place. The current owner and applicant is requesting to rezone the 28.66 acres from PUD-MR and PUD-MX to PUD-MR for the construction of an independent senior residential development that includes 61 attached villa units in 30 buildings and 236 apartment units in 5 buildings. Other structures shown on the plan include a community clubhouse with a pool and 5 small covered parking garages to serve the apartment buildings. The majority of surrounding property in all directions is zoned R1, single-family residential, and DU duplex. Property to the north is zoned R1 and developed with the city's Civic Center campus that includes Flum Bickelmeyer Park, the Civic Center, the Sodart Aquatic Center, the Veterans Tribute, and the Johnson County Library. Properties between Flum Road and the proposed development are zoned PUD-MX from the previous rezoning and contain duplexes and 1 single-family home, while properties east of Flum Road are developed with residential duplexes on property zone DU. Property to the southeast is zoned R1 and developed with a church and an AT&T transmission facility. 62nd Street is adjacent to the south, with property south of 62nd Street zoned R1 and DU and developed with single-family homes and residential duplexes. A Hy-Vee grocery is located south of 62nd Street beyond the AT&T facility. With the exception of a single 1.1 acre parcel that is zoned AG or agricultural, property to the west is zoned R1 and contains homes in the Widmer Woods subdivision, 2 single-family homes and a vacant tract of land and right-of-way for Widmer Road. The land use guide of the comprehensive plan designates the area as appropriate for a combination of medium-density residential and office commercial uses to reflect the previously approved Cobblestone plan. Approximately 26.02 acres of the site are designated as medium-density residential, while the remaining 2.64 acres are shown as office and commercial. The applicant is proposing a planned mixed residential development consisting of 297 residential dwelling units on 28.66 acres. This yields an overall gross density of 10.4 dwelling units per acre. This is well below the 21.78 dwelling units per acre threshold suggested as an appropriate density for senior residential developments within the comprehensive plan. Primary access to the site is provided by the extension of 61st Street west of Flum. Sixty-first Street will curve to the south to become Park Street and intersect with 62nd Street. Summit Street will run parallel to Park Street between 61st and 62nd Streets. Commercial drives will provide access to the apartment buildings and the clubhouse pool facility, while individual residential drives will serve the attached villa units in the area. Previous development proposals on this parcel did require traffic impact studies due to different proposed land uses that generated higher rates of traffic. A traffic impact study was not required as part of this development since it proposes fewer traffic-intense land uses than previous developments and will generate less than 100 vehicles in any peak hour. This development is not expected to have significant traffic impacts to the surrounding roadway network. Access is adequate for circulation and public safety purposes. The rezoning itself should have little, if any, detrimental effect on surrounding properties. The development will be restricted by the developer to market rate independent senior residents that generally create significantly less traffic compared to traditional multifamily developments. The proposed development is also within walking distance to nearby recreational uses that are desirable to the senior community, including the city's Civic Center, Aquatic Center, Parkland, and the public library. A grocery store and additional retail shops and services are located a short distance to the south. The site's proposed detention requirements provide an approximately 5-acre tract at the northwest corner of the site that will contain a wet bottom detention basin, providing a buffer to the adjacent properties within Widmer Woods to the northwest. The PUD-MR zoning district also requires a peripheral boundary building setback of at least 30 feet from all property lines. Widmer Road will continue to terminate in a temporary cul-de-sac as part of this development, and the proposed street network will not be connected to the existing Widmer Woods subdivision. Denial of the request would not appear to benefit the health and welfare of the community. This development proposal provides a market rate senior apartment housing option for new and existing residents of Shawnee in an infill piece of ground. And again, to kind of go over the site plan, the applicant proposes to construct a senior residential housing development. The development will consist of 61 attached villa units in 30 buildings and 236 apartment units in 5 buildings. The attached villa units will be maintenance provided and will be marketed to empty nesters 55 years of age or older. The units will range from 1,558 square feet to 2,300 square feet, each containing 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and 2-car garages. All homes will have basements, and some of them will be walkouts. The units will be for sale as condominium-type ownership, with the developer providing all services and maintenance until such time that a homes association can be formed and their rights transferred. The developer has indicated that the apartments will be restricted to family units with the head of household of age 62 years of age or older. The apartment buildings will be 3 to 4 stories in height. The largest building near the clubhouse and open space tract will include underground parking containing 51 parking stalls. The living units will be a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units ranging from 720 square feet to 1,080 square feet. Each unit will have full kitchens, outside patios or decks, and each building will have an elevator and common area. The properties will be professionally managed and offered at market rate to independent seniors. All building, grounds, open space, and amenity facilities will be maintained by a single community homeowner association that will include both the villa owners and the apartment building owners or owner. A large 5.2 acre tract will be located at the northwest corner of the project. Will contain a pond to provide wet bottom detention for stormwater management of the entire site. The existing pond will be enlarged, regraded, and reestablished with native vegetation. This area will provide aesthetic open space for the residents, and the tract will also contain a clubhouse with a pool, a patio area, and a small parking lot. This tract will be owned and maintained by the developer and eventually the homes association. The plan also includes a sidewalk extension to the north on Tract B to connect with the existing trail improvements located within Flum-Bickelmeyer Park. This will allow residents a pedestrian connection to the Civic Center complex that includes the Civic Center, the Aquatic Center, the Veterans Tribute, and the Johnson County Library. All the buildings will be constructed of durable building materials, including stone and brick veneer, cementous lap siding, and cementous panel with a stucco finished face, architectural fiberglass shingles, and architectural standing seam metal roof. There will be 5 separate apartment buildings. The largest one will be an L-shaped 4-story building containing 68 units and a 5th lower level for an underground parking structure for 51 parking stalls. 3 of the buildings will have an identical rectangular footprint. These 3 buildings will be 4 stories in height and contain 52 units each. The 5th building will be a smaller square-shaped 3-story building containing 12 units. Just to point those out on the plan, this is the largest one that will have the underground parking. These are the 3 rectangular shaped ones, and then this is the smaller square one up here. All 5 buildings will have the same architectural design elements and color palettes. The height of the building will range in height from 54 feet to approximately 68 feet, as measured from average grade elevation to the roof peak. The buildings contain an abundant amount of stone and brick veneer on all 4 sides of each building. And the remainder of the elevation consists of cementous lap siding and cementous panel siding. Each elevation uses multiple offset vertical balcony towers with column details and a mix of building materials and color to create a quality, aesthetically pleasing design. The color palette includes the use of variegated grayish beige stone veneer, a dark reddish brown brick veneer, a charcoal gray, olive green, brown, taupe, beige, and light beige paint colors. And I don't know if you can see them, but the applicant has provided some material samples down here in front of the podium. The attached villas are single-story in design with basements. All the villas are of a similar design, but with gabled roof and hip roof variations. All roofs are covered with an architectural fiberglass shingle and a slate gray in color, not a stale gray. Imagine with transpose a couple letters and quite a difference. So slate gray in color. The color elevations, the front elevation consists mostly of variegated grayish brown stone veneer and with beige colored stucco panels. With conversations I had with the architect today, they have indicated that the villa units here will be actual real stucco on all 4 elevations, not the cementous panels. So for the attached villa units, there will be the stone and then actual real stucco on all 4 elevations. The clubhouse is single-story in design with a full basement. It uses the same palette of durable building materials and colors as the apartment buildings. The hip roof has varying roof lines and pitches. The main part of the roof is covered with an architectural fiberglass shingle that is slate gray in color, and the taller vertical portions of the building are covered with a standing seam metal roof that is charcoal in color. All 4 elevations contain a combination of brick and stone veneer and the cementous stucco panels with numerous windows. The brick is carried around on all 4 walls of the structure as a wainscot with cementous stucco panels above, and vertical design elements of stone veneer provide accent and interest on each elevation. I believe I have a copy of that right here. Black line drawing of the clubhouse unit right here. And next to it is the architectural elevation of the small 5 single-story garages that will be in front of some of the apartment units. The area requirements have been met. The PUDMR rezoning request contains 28.66 acres and provides a land area of 4,200 square feet for each dwelling unit, which is more than double the minimum 2,000 square feet area that the square foot area that the Planning Commission may consider for senior communities. All bulk requirements have been satisfied with the preliminary development plan. All structures are set back a minimum of 30 feet from the subdivision property lines, which meets the peripheral boundary setback requirements. This district requires a minimum building setback of 20 feet from the public right-of-way. The applicant has exceeded that by providing a 25-foot front setback on the preliminary plan. In addition to that, the distance between the curb and the front garage doors is 36.5 feet to allow vehicles to park in there without getting into the street. All buildings meet the setback requirements with the exception of one instance where the applicant is requesting the Planning Commission consider a 5-foot deviation. This request is for a minimum 15-foot setback from the right-of-way for Summit Street to the end of apartment building number 2 as shown on the plan. That is this apartment unit right here. They're asking for, instead of a 20-foot setback, they're asking for a 15-foot setback just on that end elevation right there. And the reason they're needing that is because they're kind of compressed in there with space with this 150 to 160 foot wide gas pipeline business that runs through here. Staff is comfortable with this 5-foot deviation and believes that it does not detract from the intent of the setback requirements. All buildings are separated by more than 20 feet as required. And stated earlier, the height of the 5 apartment building range from 54 feet to 68 feet from average finished grade to the ridge cap. And the PUDMR district allows the building height to be approved at the discretion of the Planning Commission. Trash disposal for the attached villas will be handled by standard residential curbside pickup service. Trash generated by the apartment tenants will be collected internally by the management company and taken to a central interior building service area within each building. And then the trash dumpsters will be moved out for weekly pickup temporarily. so no exterior trash enclosures are proposed for this development. The building's air handling and mechanical units will be fully enclosed within the building, so no ground-mounted equipment is proposed. The multifamily amenity policy suggests that multifamily developments of over 200 dwelling units provide 4 amenities, including at least 2 Type A amenities as listed in that policy. The applicant is providing a clubhouse, which will be operated as a community center with social events, card groups, continuing education classes, fitness classes, and video entertainment. The clubhouse will have a full basement that will double as a community shelter in the event of severe weather. There will also be a swimming pool and pool deck, outdoor dining area, and patio overlooking the passive open space, of the wet bottom detention pond and the native area. In addition, a sidewalk extension will connect with the existing trail improvements located within Flum-Bickelmeyer Park to the north. This will allow the senior community residents access via pedestrian connection to public recreational amenities that include the Civic Center, the Aquatic Center, the Veterans Park, and Johnson County Library. Staff is of the opinion that these are the appropriate type of amenities for a senior living facility and are in conformance with the multifamily amenity policy. The plan does not indicate the use of any subdivision monument signage. However, if monument signage is desired, it could be located on private property at the entrances to the development, provided they are located and constructed in accordance with the requirements of SMC 5.64. The applicant has provided a landscape plan for the development. The plan shows a combination of deciduous and evergreen trees spread throughout the site. In total, 291 trees and 59 shrubs are being added to the site to meet street tree, parking lot, and open space tree requirements. The plan provides a variety of deciduous and evergreen tree species to satisfy the species mix requirement of the ordinance. And additional shrub and perennial plantings will be added around the building foundations as part of a final landscape plan that will be provided with the final development plan. Age-restricted housing or senior housing that is generally defined as housing for persons 55 years of age or older requires 1.3 parking spaces per dwelling unit. The required number of on-site parking stalls for the 236 total apartment units is 307 parking stalls. The plan provides for 352 total parking stalls, including 35 garage stalls, 51 underground stalls, and 266 surface stalls, thus exceeding the number of required parking stalls. Information on private site lighting, including parking lot lighting, has not been provided at this preliminary plan stage, although parking lot lighting is not required with the development. To touch on traffic again, the City of Shawnee requires a traffic impact study when a proposed development generates 100 vehicle trips during the AM or PM peak period, according to the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. Developments generating less than 100 trips in a peak hour are unlikely to have a large enough impact on the surrounding roadway network to warrant an in-depth study. The developer's traffic engineer submitted a memo that used trip generation manual methodology to estimate the total number of generated trips for this development. The memo shows that Veterans Park is expected to generate approximately 60 trips in the AM peak hour and 80 trips in the evening peak hour. The city's traffic engineer concurs with this analysis. A traffic impact study was not required as part of this development since the anticipated vehicle trips are below the 100 vehicle peak hour threshold. And as an example, previous developments of this parcel did require traffic impact studies due to different land uses and that generated higher traffic rates. For example, Cobblestone Court was expected to generate approximately 215 vehicles in the AM peak hour and 365 vehicles in the PM peak hour. However, 53 to 68% of these trips were generated by the retail and office uses, which are not present as part of this development. Additionally, Cobblestone had standard multifamily apartments, which generate higher traffic than the proposed Veteran Park senior attached housing. In summary, Veterans Park has fewer traffic intense land uses than previous developments and will generate less than 100 vehicles in any peak hour. Therefore, a traffic impact study was not required. This development is not expected to have significant traffic impacts to the surrounding roadway network. Conceptual street layout shown for this development on the preliminary development plan is generally acceptable. Likewise, the proposed centerline grades and vertical curves shown on the preliminary street plan profile sheets are generally acceptable. Instead of permanently improving the Widmer Road cul-de-sac and constructing a fire access drive, the Veterans Park developer has proposed to dedicate 30 feet of right-of-way for the possible future extension of Widmer Road south to 62nd Street. While neither Widmer Road or the access drive will be constructed at this time, the issue of providing access to the homes in Timber Oaks and Widmer Road subdivision would remain unchanged. The development site adjoins the north side of 62nd Street. The street along the frontage of the development site is an unimproved ditch section roadway. As such, the developer is responsible for improving the north half of 62nd Street to minor residential standards. And the sidewalk along 62nd Street will be extended along the entire north side of the street. Streetlights will not be required on 62nd as there are existing streetlights on the south side of the street. Proposed 61st Street will be constructed to local residential street standards modified to accommodate an eastbound left turn lane at Flum Road. This segment of the roadway will be 40 feet wide, while the remainder of the roadway will be 27 feet wide. All other internal streets shall be designed to local residential street standards. The conceptual design for the proposed commercial driveway approaches shown on the preliminary development plan appear to be in substantial compliance with city standards. The applicant has submitted a preliminary storm drainage study showing a conceptual grading plan, a drainage system, a drainage area map, and a drainage table summarizing the hydrologic and hydraulic analysis for the development. The study is substantially complete and adequate for the purposes of reviewing the preliminary development plan. The applicant is required to provide adequate drainage for the improvements on 62nd Street. The conceptual plan for the improvements is sufficient. The channel located downstream of the proposed detention basin appears to be undersized based on field survey information obtained by the engineer. As part of the final design, the applicant will be required to address these downstream inadequacies. Options could include, but are not limited to, reconstructing the channel to increase capacity, enclosing the channel to convey the 1% annual chance storm, or over-detaining upstream runoff to reduce the release rate from the development. The applicant is responsible for working with the downstream landowners where the channel is located to reach an agreeable solution for both parties and that is also acceptable to the city. At a minimum, it appears that at least the first 3 lots located immediately downstream of this proposed development will be impacted. The solution most feasible for correcting the problem will likely be the construction of a storm sewer with adequate capacity to convey the 1% annual storm. This development is subject to provisions of SMC Chapter 11.08, Stormwater Management, which pertains to the city's stormwater utility regulations. The applicant is responsible for preparing an impervious area plan in accordance with Shawnee Design and Construction Manual. This development is also subject to provisions SMC Chapter 11.16, Stormwater Treatment, which pertains to the implementation of stormwater treatment facilities. The applicant is proposing the use of an existing on-site pond as the main source of stormwater treatment. The pond will be retrofitted as needed to meet the requirements of a wet detention basin as required by the APWA BMP manual. In addition to the pond, native grasses will be planted and or restored, and a large proprietary unit will be installed to pre-treat the runoff before it enters the pond. All stormwater treatment facilities required for this development shall be designed in accordance with the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual. The development is also subject to provisions of SMC Chapter 11.24, Stormwater Detention, which pertains to the construction and maintenance of on-site stormwater detention facilities. The applicant has submitted a preliminary stormwater detention study showing a conceptual layout of the detention facility, a drainage area map, and estimated storage volumes and allowable release rates. The preliminary study is substantially complete and adequate for reviewing the development plan. Majority of the development will be routed to a detention facility located at the northwest corner of the site. Due to the grade and drainage patterns, a small portion of the site will be direct released, and the applicant will be required to over-detain the runoff routed through the basin to ensure the cumulative post-development release rates do not exceed the cumulative pre-development release rates. Subdivision is subject to provisions of Shawnee Municipal Code 12.14, Park and Recreational Land Use Fund. Open space fees in the amount of $400 per residential unit. will be due at the time of the final plat is recorded or prior to issuance of a building permit. This development is also subject to provisions SMC Chapter 12.26 excise tax on the platting of real property. Estimated excise tax for this development is $268,400 based on an area of roughly 1,248,372 square feet at the current rate of 21.5 cents per square foot. The developer may enter into an excise tax abatement agreement with the city that would allow for the suspension, partial or in full, for the excise tax due, provided the final plat is approved and recorded prior to expiration of the suspension of the excise tax policy as set by the city. This agreement between the property owner and the city will be created, agreed upon, and executed prior to obtaining the mayor's signature on their final plat. As far as staff's recommendations, staff is supportive of the project and the efforts the developer has made in creating a quality senior living option for new and existing residents of Shawnee on an infill piece of ground with minimum impact to the surrounding neighborhoods. Staff recommends approval of PUD-01-18-05 preliminary development plan and rezoning from PUD-MX planned unit development mixed use and PUD-MR planned unit development mixed residential to PUD-MR planned unit development mixed residential for Veterans Park Senior Community, a senior residential community containing 297 attached villa and apartment dwelling units located approximately within the 6,000 to 6,100 block of Flum Road, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, publication of the rezoning ordinance. Number 2, all bulk regulations of the PUD-MR zoning district, including the 30-foot peripheral boundary. A 15-foot setback from the Summit Street right-of-way line will be permitted for the west end of building number 2, as shown on the plan due to space constraints from the gas pipelines in the area. Number 3, buildings shall be constructed as depicted on the submitted building elevations, including architectural elements, building materials, and colors. Any deviations from the general layout or architectural design shall require the area to be rezoned again. Final plans and plats for each phase will be submitted for Planning Commission approval prior to construction. No building permit for the project shall be issued until a final subdivision plat has been approved by the city and recorded at the Johnson County Office of Records and Tax Administration. Number 4, the site improvements shall be constructed as depicted on submitted development plans, and project amenities shall be provided as detailed in the staff report. 5, no certificate of occupancy shall be issued until all parking lots for the complex are constructed, striped, and marked with ADA signage. 6, all landscaping as depicted on the landscape plan shall be planted prior to issuance of a final certificate of occupancy, and all disturbed areas shall be sodded. A final landscape plan for each apartment building shall be submitted with the final development plan showing foundation plantings and the addition of missing landscape islands within the parking lot as indicated within the staff report. 7, the off-site sidewalk connection to the city park shall be completed prior to issuance of final certificate of occupancy. 8, if provided, any monument sign shall conform to SMC 5.64, and a sign permit shall be obtained from the planning department prior to installation. Number 9, all utilities shall be underground. Number 10, the street improvements required for this development shall be designed according to the standards in the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual and is detailed within the staff report. Number 11, the applicant is responsible for improving the north half of 62nd Street as detailed within the staff report. Number 12, the west 30 feet of right-of-way for Widmer Road shall be dedicated in the final plat for this development. Number 13, the applicant is responsible for submitting street improvement plans to development services for review and acceptance prior to preparing the signature copies of the final plat. 14, the applicant is required to install the commercial driveway approaches in accordance with the standards in the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual and is detailed within the staff report. 15, the public street lighting system required shall be designed in accordance with the Shawnee Design Construction Manual and is detailed within the staff report. 16, storm drainage improvements required for this development shall be designed in accordance with the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual, Division 2300, storm drainage, and is detailed within the staff report. This includes off-site downstream channel improvements. 17, this development is subject to provisions of SMC Chapter 11.08, Stormwater Management, which pertains to the city stormwater utility regulations. 18, the applicant is responsible for preparing an impervious area plan in accordance with the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual, Division 2300 Storm Drainage. 19, this development is subject to provisions of SMC Chapter 11.16 Stormwater Treatment, which pertains to the implementation of stormwater treatment facilities and is detailed within the staff report. Number 20, this development is subject to provision of SMC Chapter 11.24 Stormwater Detention, which pertains to the construction and maintenance of on-site stormwater detention facilities. 21, the stormwater detention facility is required to be built and certified by the engineer prior to a certificate of occupancy for any of the buildings. The as-built shall be prepared in accordance with the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual. 22, this development is subject to provisions of SMC Chapter 11.20 Land Disturbance Activity, which pertains to site grading and erosion control measures. 23, the applicant or landowner is responsible for obtaining a land disturbance permit as required by Codes Administration prior to undertaking any land disturbance or construction activities on the development site. 24, the applicant is responsible for scheduling a pre-design meeting with the development engineer prior to preparing the subdivision improvement plans and the individual site civil plans. The final plans for this development must be submitted for review and acceptance by the city prior to issuance of a public improvement permit or building permit. 25, all private and public improvements for this development shall be constructed according to the applicable standards in the Shawnee Design and Construction Manual. A public improvement permit will be required for all public street, storm, and streetlight improvements. 26, the applicant is required to provide construction phasing plans for the development. Additionally, the applicant is required to provide traffic control and signage during construction. 27, all fire hydrants with fire-compliant fire flows, and fire lanes as required by the fire department shall be approved prior to issuance of a building permit. Minimum fire flow and flow duration shall be specified in table B105.1 of the International Fire Code, and fire flow is measured at 20 psi residual pressure. 28, open space fees in the amount of $400 per residential unit or $118,800 shall be paid prior to issuance of a building permit. 29, provisions of the excise tax shall be satisfied prior to the mayor signing the recording copies of the plat. The developer may enter into a developer's agreement with the city that will allow for the suspension, partial or in full, of the excise tax, provided the final plat is approved and recorded prior to expiration of the suspension of excise tax as set by the city. This agreement between the property owner and the city shall be created, agreed upon, and executed prior to obtaining the mayor's signature on the recording copy of the final plat. And finally, number 30, the applicant is responsible for obtaining all such permits as may be required by all federal, state, and local agencies, including but not limited to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, Kansas Division of Water Resources, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. That concludes staff's presentation.
Mark, thank you. And you did very well. That was about 40 minutes of it. I'm impressed. Thank you very much. Is the applicant present? If you'll come forward and state your name and address, please, sir.
I'm William McCroy, 6013 Cottonwood Street, Shawnee, Kansas.
Thank you. Have you read the staff report and are you in agreement with the conditions of approval?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Does the planning commission have any questions for the applicant or staff? Commissioner Willoughby.
At what point, a date or a percentage of completion does the required maintenance, requirements for maintenance pass from the developer to the homeowners association?
Generally, it's at 80%.
80%. Okay. My second question is the 30-foot right-of-way, is that on the west side of the present Widmer Road or on the east side?
That's on the east side.
Okay, because it states on the west side.
There's already
20
on the
foot.
west side.
Right.
There's not on the east side.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner John Smith?
Your transfer at 80% to homeowners association. Well, this is a large development. Will your covenants or requirements allow the management or the homeowners association to engage a management company to manages for the homeowners
Of course.
association.
However, it's not really economically feasible since we have, as part of our partnership, a very strong property management group, Wigand Omega, that manages the apartments which we keep. So it's more economical generally for them to keep Wigand for the homeowners, well, for the condo association.
Okay, thank you.
There's only 60 units,
Oh,
so.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner Peterson?
Actually, I have several, sorry. First of all, I know that you meet the requirements based on the guidelines for parking. If you just walk back the math with me, we're talking 236 apartments. 60% of those are two-bedroom,
That is correct.
and those are head of household being 62 years of age.
55.
No, that's the villas, I thought.
No, it's all 55 and older.
Oh. Because it's not in what I was reading, but that's okay. My point is, 60% of that, are you expecting me to quit driving when I move in there, or that I have to ride with my
No, ma'am,
husband, which would be a
generally
really bad
they're
idea?
1 1/4 spaces per unit. We're doing this very same design in other cities, and we've actually overparked this
Have you?
particular.
Because one of my concerns is that you don't have any place for, like, if I was to come visit somebody there, like my grandmother moved in there.
Oh, yes, ma'am, there's plenty of,
Because others that
Additional
I've seen have
spaces.
not, and I understand that
yeah.
we're driving
I
a
believe
little
it.
longer, so we
No,
just need to make
so-
certain.
We have here our site planning architect, our architect from J. Price Architecture, and a representative of Wigand Omega, and certainly they can answer those questions. Am I correct? Right? Parking. Is
I know
her
we meet the
question-
standard. Yeah.
Sir,
Can you-
if you come up the microphone, state your name and address. Thank you.
In terms of the-
Yes, good evening. My name is Ed Daigle, and I am a representative of Wigand Omega in Wichita. That's where our corporate office is.
Great. No, my concern is, I know that we meet the standards set out by the guideline. I was just curious what your feelings were on that, because people are living older, being active longer. And so are we going to be short on parking, or what are you seeing as an industry trend?
That's typically not a problem, because a lot of the seniors have gotten to the point where they're not able to drive. And you still have, even with people visiting, typically those numbers that Jay's talking about, it's not a problem. It's typically more than enough in most cases for everybody to park.
Number 2 question, follow-up, is I know this is a pre-plat, it's not a final plan. I was curious if you could point to where they think the sidewalk will connect with the community sidewalk, as well as what are your plans for walkability within the campus?
There's sidewalks throughout.
On one side, both sides?
Both
Where?
sides.
Okay.
Dan Foster with Schlegel and Associates. That sidewalk connection is right here on the west side of that small building.
Okay.
And then, as Jay mentioned, we have sidewalks on both sides throughout the attached villa side. And then we've got just a single sidewalk on the park side along this portion of 61st Street.
Are there crosswalks or any way because that could potentially be a very busy street, and if we're talking about elderly that shouldn't drive, they probably shouldn't be
Yeah,
crossing
so
4
we
lanes
have
of
a
traffic.
crosswalk right here between this 12 unit and this larger building where these two drives intersect 61st Street, because that's kind of a pseudo intersection. And then we've also got a crosswalk at, I believe this is Summit Street, that connects over and takes to the clubhouse. And so again, the reason why we put that sidewalk is it's on the park side and it's on the side of the clubhouse. So everybody crosses over at those intersections and then can get to the clubhouse or to the park or to the other city provided facilities.
Thank you.
And that's a big thing. Because on all the previous properties that I've developed, we go back and ask people, what works in your unit, what doesn't work? You know, what are those amenities that you really want to have? And time over time, the response is walking.
Great.
So a walkable community, one of the things that really, well, first of all, this site is in my backyard. My house is right there. And everybody in the development group, Pat Reagan, Pat McEnany, Mike Rickmeyer, we all have strong associations to this area and to that site. But the walkability is a big thing to us.
Thank you. Any other questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner Roth?
Yeah, just have a few questions here. And it's probably a combination of staff and client. Are we doing anything on that Widemer Road? Is that being extended or is that completely off?
We asked that question and we had a committee meeting of the whole to ask whether yes or no. And the city council unanimously said that we would not have to put it in at this time.
Okay. Okay. The second question I had, there's a building, I can't tell if it's building 5 or 6. It says 3 stories maybe. It's right on the west side, northwest side.
The Chicago 3 flat?
Yeah. So
yeah,
I'm just concerned. So we have the 3 residential or for residential properties right behind there. What's that elevation look like facing? Are they going, is it up? Is it pretty flat right there? I'm curious what.
Exactly like a Chicago 3 flat.
No, he's talking about grade.
Grade elevations, yeah, I'm sorry.
the-
So for those neighbors or those people that are living there, what's their view
Houses.
gonna look like? Is it a 3-story apartment complex at that level or is it elevated at all?
No, the grade drops off.
Okay.
So everything basically slopes from east to west towards the pond. So that grade actually comes down.
So
So,
it'd be a
that
little
first
lower
story
then.
is going to be a little lower. And then in addition to that, if you notice on the landscape plan, we provided a pretty solid mass of evergreen trees and shrubs along that to help buffer that.
Right.
And we're 30 feet away. as well,
Perfect.
which is
Yeah, it's real
required.
good looking too.
And the kind of the last question I had is, there was a comment about the downstream landowners and working with the landowners in the city on this downstream. What's that entail and what's that? I mean, this is a lot of open area now that's going to be paved and a lot of storm water runoff. How's that get addressed?
Already a lot of runoff.
So
No,
you
there's
want me to
more
answer?
because of it's pavement now versus grass. I mean, we all know pavement creates more runoff.
So in the previous approved cobblestone development, there was quite a bit of study done on this particular area. And one of the things that came out of that was that we were going to redesign or redo that pond to bring it up to current standards, but we're also over detaining there. So we're providing additional detention within that pond that goes above and beyond what we're required to do. Typically under the code, we're required to release at the same amount that's releasing today. So that's the first step, is that we are actually releasing at a lower rate than what is today. The second thing,
Bigger and deeper.
yeah. The second thing is that as part of the construction, we kind of went back and forth because that channel is really only about a foot deep and only like 5 or 6 feet wide. I mean, it's nothing. It should have been a lot bigger and deeper, a pipe put there. So after going through on the cobblestone development, the best approach that came out was that we would go ahead and extend a pipe through a public drainage easement that's across the back of there. We tried to place the pipe in the least intrusive place in those backyards so that we weren't, just taking out every single tree and everything that was back there. Part of that requirement is that we have to basically replace everything that's in that backyard, in those backyards today have to be replaced when we're done back to that same condition. So That's kind of what we're looking at, or as near as we can get. So I know there's a rock line channel on one of those, so we'll have to do a rock line channel. I know the guy, we spoke to him when we were doing the cobblestone. He spent many of his own personal hours out there building that thing. And I can appreciate that because I've been there and done that. But we will rebuild that back. I know that somebody's got a little bridge over a portion of it, so we'll be preserving that bridge and putting that back and restoring all that back.
So what is that commitment? How's that tie? How do they get tied on the commitment to rebuilding what's there? And is it getting documented on what's there and how it gets rebuilt and getting the residents buy-in on that as well?
That'd be part of the conditions of the final development plan when it comes through, but it will also be noted as part of the engineering plans that Development Services will approve before they issue the public permits.
Thanks. That's all I have.
And staff's been pretty clear about that all the way through the process, even on this project.
And we were
that we're required
committed
to
to
do
it.
that. So.
We were committed to it from the beginning. We're putting about $600,000 into that pond.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner Braley?
Short one. I noticed, and I know this is preliminary that we're approving, but in your perspective rendering, it shows a path kind of leading through the utility easement. Kind of looks like it's connecting two of the apartments and parking lots. Is that just in the rendering? Is that intended to be in the final, that there's going to be some sort of path connection through that easement?
That would be ideal. I mean, our thought is that would be utilized for lack of better use, a dog park or some passive things like that. That's a question that we have to ask the gas company or the pipeline company, because they, in the past, they've allowed that. I can tell you on a more recent project, they've been a lot stricter about any kind of pavement paralleling the gas pipeline or any kind of use like that. They've been, they have some new folks over there that are really less flexible about the rules. And so, where we're crossing is pretty much, it's got to be as close to a 90-degree crossing, and that's really all that we get. We had a project approved and went to them, and we basically are going back to the process again in a different city to redo that because the gas pipeline company would not allow us to do a crossing that we had.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Les Smith?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mark, can we just get clarification, because we do have a contradiction on the age. Not that it matters, I don't think, one way or another for the project, but just like to have things neat and clean. Because we do have 55 years on the villa units and 62 years on the apartments. If we just get that cleaned up.
Mark Zilsdorf, planning staff. Yeah, the information that was provided to us by the applicant had indicated the two different ages. The 55 and older was for the villas, and then the apartment units were shown to be head of household 62 years of age and older. Now, if that is changed, that's news to us as of this evening.
It's really a financing issue.
I don't care because I meet both of them. But, so it's 55 across the board, is that your intent?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
It opens up a broader market. It does eliminate certain kinds of financing, but the broader market. Really what we're going for is you get them when they're moving into the villas, then sorry guys, statistically the guy dies off. The woman already has a relationship with other residents. She doesn't want to be in a freestanding unit. She moves into the apartments, so.
I just wanted to have you cleaned up before you got to the council. That's
Yes, no, we saw that.
Okay.
And that's, in all fairness to Mark, that's a very recent development.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Mark. Sorry, I'm finished.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? Commissioner Peterson?
Yeah, at one point in, I don't know if it's staff or it's you guys. At one point in time in here, it noticed, I said, it said that you'll start building with the apartment. I'm assuming that would be the clubhouse area and maybe the big L one, because you want numbers in there first or whatever. But if you were going to break this into phases, what would they be?
Well,
Would it be all the apartments first?
right now, I believe we're sitting on approximately 54 expressions of interest for the 60 villas that we've got. So where would you start? They're a for sale product.
Yes.
So,
Well done.
well, and from an economic point of view, you can bring in the infrastructure and build the clubhouse and do the villas where the apartments, you're talking, 230 units at $163,000 delivered cost per unit. You're, north of 35 million bucks. So it takes a little bit of work to borrow that kind of money.
Oh.
Yeah. Well,
Any other questions for staff or applicant? So that I'm not confused, because sometimes I get confused, both of them are age restricted to 55 and older?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because in the notes it said more or less want to be 55 and older.
No.
So if they're all 55 and older?
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Another question for you is, at present, with what we've seen, there seems to be a lack of amenities in the apartment buildings. I presume those will come in later?
Oh, well, in terms of the amenities, it's really in the final site plan. You've got the clubhouse.
Correct.
That's part of, and that's really where their amenities are: the pool, the exercise room, the outdoor dining area. We generally design a bocce ball court in that area. They're putting green. So in the pool, they do. They have classes in the clubhouse. Wygan is very aggressive about the community aspect of that. So they do like CPR and then water aerobics, hopefully not together at the same time.
So in the apartments, in the common areas, you will have more amenities in there that so far you have not described?
In the buildings themselves?
In the apartments, because I'm looking at, you're talking about apartments with 55 and older, which is generally people that really don't want to mow their lawn and they don't mind walking, but there's no description of amenities in the apartment buildings. And so I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
There's seating areas, with gathering points, card tables, that sort of thing. But generally, we try to get them out of the buildings. We try to get them to the clubhouse, to get them community. The whole thing here is we're different. We're not an institutional living setting.
Right.
As soon as you're institutionalized, you begin dying. And as soon as you separate couples from one another, they both begin dying. So what we're striving for, and Wygan has a senior side, Omega Senior Properties. In the clubhouse, we have an office for in-home health care. So they go and they take these services on an a la carte basis. But the whole idea is to create this community of activities. We have a bus at each of the locations, and they go and, do stuff, like go to the Royals and the Chiefs and Oak Park Mall and that sort of thing. So it's really that the clubhouse becomes the focal point.
And I guess I understand the clubhouse, but I'm referring to your common rooms in your apartments, because no matter what, January and February
Right.
in Shawnee
Absolutely.
says, I don't want to walk to a doggone clubhouse.
Right.
So that's
Yes.
what I'm wondering,
Right.
what your plans are
They have-
within the apartment buildings.
Right. They have sitting areas and card tables and that sort of thing.
Very fine. Very fine. Thank you.
Correct? Okay.
Any other questions for applicant or staff? I don't mind making a couple comments to these gentlemen here. I've been up here a while, so I've been through the Vantage deal, and I'm guessing you've had multiple sessions with the neighbors up there?
I've
Is that
found over
correct?
time that it's best to go into the public and tell them what you want to do. And if you've got good design practices, That's why you shouldn't put apartments up against Widmer Woods. Like I say, that's my backyard. So laying out a plan that's well-designed in the first place and telling people what you're going to do and getting their feedback beforehand, that's the way to go. Involving people like Mr. Reagan in your development team that know the public that you're dealing with, and having been here and heard the issues that were created by prior attempts and addressing those issues beforehand, instead of cramming in a whole bunch of units. It's a park. That's why I called it Veterans Park, and making it more park-like. That's important. And when people see that it's quality and see that you really care, they care as well.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff or applicant? If not, then this is a public hearing. Does anybody from the public wish to address this matter? If you'd come forward and state your name and address, please, sir.
Chairman Busby, if we could ask each person that comes up and speak, there's a pad of paper and a pen there, if they could just jot down their name and address.
You want it written legibly, I presume.
Correct.
Very good. No scribbling now.
I'm Roger Chalk. I live at 6040 Whitby Road. You know, one of the things that they said here, something about the fact that in reading the report from staff, was that nothing was going to be detrimental to the neighbors. Well, I think they ought to build a pen and put the coyotes in it, so when the sirens go off, we could hear the coyotes. I think we ought to see all the deer that are going to be gone. The foxes left earlier, so we can't see those. But anyway, just kidding. I have had the pleasure of visiting with this team Monday, and I had some concerns, and they answered them for me. Now, as you guys know, I live adjacent. The piece that was labeled agriculture for the zoning, that's me. Okay? On the west side of this property. They have indicated, my concerns were water drainage. They answered them. My concerns were loss of trees. They answered them. And I really appreciate it. I want to say that as I've been opposed to several of the other projects, not the cobblestone one, and some of you that have been on this board before have heard me, and I'm not opposed to this. I think it's good. I think we're going to be A-okay. I really appreciate the fact that it's going to be for people like me. Okay? However, one other thing that I want to say, and it's very simple, and I've been saying it all along, and here it popped up again. Mark didn't read this little part on page 9 when he was reading about Widmer Road, which, as most of you know, it dead ends at my place on both sides. And would I like to see Widmer Road developed? Well, from the edge of my property going south to 62nd Street, that'd be wonderful. But I don't want to see, and when they had this committee meeting in February, the second week in February, they said that there would be, if they connected Widmer Road through, there'd be 1,200 cars per day going down through Widmer Road. I enjoy the fact today that there are 0 going past my house. How many of you people have been down Widmer Road to my house? Anybody? 2 of you? I would invite the rest of you at some point in time to come down Widmer Road, stop, see if I'm home, and we'll have a cup of coffee. Okay? Therefore, when they bring up the fact that the chalk property could be developed is amazing. You would see that we would have to have a cave in order to develop anything. My house sits there, and then the little portion of property that is vacant, you take 30 feet out of it, and you're up against a bank. So it's ridiculous in these reports to continue to say that the chalk property could have some kind of development. The Dudley property coming down the hill, possibly the first 3 lots could be developed, but if you see the ravine that's often down in there and the way that the water goes through down in there, you'd have to be a genius of a developer to get the rest of those lots developed. Widmer Road is non-economically able to be developed for anybody. I wish it were for me, but that's the way it is. But like I said, I'm through. Come see me and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chalk. Does anyone else from the audience care to talk on this matter? Please come forward, and if you'll state your name and address, and write your name and address on the little sheet of paper there.
My name is Sharon Larkin. I'm coming for my mom. She lives at 13829 West 62nd. I just had some questions like he did, where you guys said there's not going to be any upset to the surrounding neighborhood. She lives on the south side of 62nd, and she's on the corner of 62nd and Widmer. Her concern was, I know the last developments that were coming through, she had said something about, well, when I came to the last meeting, they were going to develop Widmer going down to 63rd Street. Is that still true? No? So they're not going to touch that at all? Okay. That was her concern. Another concern is there's some houses there on the, there's, I think, 3 houses that are still on septic. Is that going to be any issue as far as with sewers or anything like that? Okay, so nothing on the south side of 62nd at all. Okay.
From the engineers and the staff all shaking their head no, then I would say that it means no, it won't be an issue.
There'd be no improvements on the south half of 62nd Street.
Because they were going to take out like her tree and put down.
And that plan has all changed. With this development, they're just doing improvements to the north half of 62nd Street in Northland.
Okay. That's what it sounded like, but I thought I'm going to verify just to make sure. Okay, that's all I had.
Very fine, thank you. Does anybody else from the audience care to weigh in on this matter? Please, if you come forward, state your name, address, and write it legibly on the sheet of paper.
Hi, my name is Brandon Grimm, and I live at 6038 Flum. And while I'm not a property owner, I have my great-grandpa was John Bickelmeyer, who owned this property up through 2004 when he passed away. I have lived adjacent to it almost my entire life. And for one, as Roger Chalk said, I do wonder about the coyotes and the deer that I regularly see and hear at night, what they're going to do. And also, yes, the foxes haven't been seen in quite some time. One of the things that I wanted to mention was that one of the things that several property owners campaigned against in the last round was the height of the buildings. And I'm not sure if that was specific exactly to their location, but it's still a concern for someone like myself who very much enjoys the views that have graced the city of Shawnee for quite some time, especially in the afternoons. The sunsets are quite nice. Another thing related to the traffic on Flum Road and surrounding areas. I know that I was in disagreement along with some others in the last round that any of the traffic studies that were referenced were adequate or even done at the right time of year, especially when you take into consideration the high schoolers that go up and down Flum Road. I'm concerned about any increase in traffic along Flum Road. I can just barely remember when Flum was still a 2-lane up through Shawnee Mission Parkway and Johnson Drive there. And any increase, I already have to cross the road just to get my mail, because when they widened in the early 90s, they moved the mailboxes. And I tell you what, it's a pain, it's a chore. I've seen many an accident, witnessed many an accident there, seen very harmful accidents there. I've been involved in an accident on Flum Road before when someone came out and cut me off. It's already, the traffic situation at Shaw Mission Parkway in Flum is already incredibly bad. You see people run lights all the time. You have people that come off of 63rd Street, come off of 67th Street, don't obey the traffic laws there. I wonder what you're going to do when you have an increase in the traffic along that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else from the audience care to weigh in on this matter? If not, then we're in commission discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Les Smith?
just the record, Mr. Chalk, you are welcome to have coyotes that I hear in the middle of the night every night, and I would come see you if you'd offer something a little bit better than coffee. The third thing is yes, you've been opposed for various reasons in the past, and I just think it's commendable for you to stand up and say, hey, this is going to be okay for us. I think that's good. That's all.
Thank you. Any other more Commissioner Wise?
I'd just like to, I guess, state my interest in this development. I think it's a better fit for the area with less traffic impact. I think it's a solid design, a good mix. So I appreciate somebody taking an interest in this property. I do realize, there is some impact, can't be helped, but it just feels like a good fit and a good design location.
Thank you. And if I could add one thing to it, is every time I go by that property, I think of John and Mary living up there, and I think, that's a really nice field out there. That ought to be easy to develop, except for the damn gas lines going down the middle of it. And then it becomes that it's hard to fit stuff on this that makes sense. It also has to make sense financially. It has to make sense that, if you will, the community accepts it and believes that that is as good as we can probably get on a project, on a piece of land that's really kind of difficult to deal with. So, sorry to add that in. Commissioner Willoughby, did you have something? Is there anybody else since we're in commission discussion? Anybody else? Commissioner John Smith?
Well, I wasn't here and never heard of the earlier iterations that were offered, but this appears to me to be a well thought out plan. Although it's preliminary, there's a lot of things to follow, but I appreciate the work that has gone into this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Care to make a motion, Mr. Willoughby?
Yes, sir. I move for approval of PUD-01-18-05 rezoning from PUD-MR Planned Unit Development Mixed Residential and PUD-MX Planned Unit Development Mixed Use to PUD-MR Planned Unit Development Mixed Residential and preliminary development plan approval for Veterans Park Senior Community, a senior residential housing development located approximately in the 6,000 to 6,100 blocks of Flum Road, per staff recommendations.
Thank you. Is there a second on the matter?
Second.
Commissioner Les Smith, thank you for the second.
Chairman Busby, may I
Yes.
interject just a minute?
Please, Mark.
Subject to staff conditions, based on some comments we had tonight, there are two, the staff would recommend revising two of those conditions.
Please.
One would be condition 3, where we talked about doing a real true stucco on the villas as opposed to the panel.
Mhm.
And then on condition 12, that it should say east 30 feet instead of west 30 feet.
Thank you for those additions and corrections. As that's been part of when the motion was made, then I don't think we have to redo the motion. That's just considered a part of it now, or would you prefer to have it redone?
One
Commissioner
question.
Willoughby?
What about the 55 and 62? Do we clarify that?
That's actually not within the conditions of approval.
Okay. Okay, so I'll amend my motion to include the two changes
And the second concurs. There you go.
Do I need to?
Now you're done.
And the second concurs. Okay. So we have a motion and a second for passing of PUD 011805 Planned Unit Development Mixed Residential and PUD MX to PUD MR and Preliminary Development Plan approval for Veterans Park Senior Community, a senior residential housing development located at 6,000 and 6,100 blocks of Flum Road, subject to staff recommendations and the two included notations we've just added. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. And I'd like to compliment staff too. I know staff has worked an incredible amount of time on this project, and it's good to see it come to fruition. At least our part. Next on the agenda is the review of the 2019 to 2024 capital improvement plan. Paul?
State statutes require that the Planning Commission annually review and approve the capital improvement plan. Comments and suggestions made by the Planning Commission are forwarded to the governing body prior to their adoption. The draft plan indicates projects that have already been completed but are not bonded, as well as projects that are under construction or have been continued from the 2018 plan. The plan also includes the current year projects as well as the 6-year proposed projects. And just to remind you all that there are a number of factors that affect the positioning of projects over the next 6 years. While development patterns play a large role, the ability of the city to finance the project is actually the controlling factor. During the past year, staff and governing body have continued to review a list of projects to be included in the capital improvements plan. And additionally, the governing body has begun a prioritization process to assist in determining the desires of the projects to be undertaken over the extended period of time. The projects listed are those that will be able to be bonded with funds collected through mill levy to accommodate bond and interest payments or use special funds directed for specific types of improvements. Some street improvements receive state and or federal dollars. These dollars are allocated for specific years and therefore the project must be undertaken at that time or the project cannot occur. Additional funding comes from the County Assistance Roads System, which is commonly known as the CARS program, for the maintenance and new improvements. Additional funding, which is the SIP program, is now available through the 3/8 city sales tax approved by the voters. And if you remember, 2/3 of it goes to general maintenance, and then we also have dedicated 1/3 of those costs to go in and improve some just section roads, and you'll see those for the first time. We've collected enough money that you're going to see those projects starting to occur. Funding for stormwater projects comes from the city's Parks and Pipe Sales Tax, as well as the county's SMAC, which is the Stormwater Management Advisory Council funding projects. Projects undertaken from the collection of the city's stormwater fee, which funds stormwater utility, are also in the CIP. Parks funding comes from a variety of sources, such as federal and state grants, Parks and Pipe Sales Tax, special funds, and the Land Use Recreation Fund. And the Land Use Recreation Fund was one of the items that was mentioned in the last project review on Veterans Park, where there's a $400 fee that's collected at the time of building permits issued for each unit in a specific building, or $400 for like a single family residence. We provided you with a larger chart that indicates the projects to be undertaken in each year. Like the previous year's plans, the 6th year of the plan contains a few specific projects. It should be noted that most of the projects included in the CIP are stormwater, park development, and street maintenance related. The CIP specifically addresses street maintenance program projects that are anticipated to be funded in parts with the CARS funding from the county, and money from the Economic Development Fund comes from annual payments made by Waste Management as part of an agreement to extend the life of the Johnson County landfill. The street projects include Johnson Drive between Martindale and I-435, Neiman Road between 55th and Shawnee Mission Parkway, 43rd Street between Frisbee and K7 Highway. That's one of the economic development projects. Blackman Road between 63rd and the South City limits. 75th Street corridor improvements, I-435 and Johnson Drive interchange improvements, Monticello Road, Shawnee Mission Parkway to 71st, which would be Phase 1, and Monticello Road 71st to 79th, which is Phase 2. Midland Drive between Shawnee Mission Parkway to 435, and Midland Drive between Elm Ridge and Lackman. Other street improvements identified that we use either federal or local funds include Flint, which is our first SIP project that's currently underway between Johnson Drive to 62nd. We'll use community development block grant funds for 59th Street, King to Barton. We have the 53rd Street improvements, Roberts to Woodsonia, and that's the road that'll run along the north side of the newly approved fire station, so it'll connect Woodsonia Road to Roberts inside the commercial development. And back to the CDBG projects, King 59th to 60th, 60th Flint to Neiman, and 59th King to Barton. So we're looking at doing the improvements sort of at the southwest of City Hall up here. And then a second SIP project is Goddard from 55th Street to Johnson Drive. And then our third SIP project is Monrovia 55th to Johnson Drive. CIP also includes a variety of stormwater and drainage improvements. One that's currently underway is Neiman Corridor North, which is west of Flint to west of Neiman, and that's the project that's currently underway. It's the one that is in the area where the old Discount Smokes building was located, and it goes up to Flint Street and ties into the Flint project. Other stormwater activities specifically listed is 6329 Halsey Culvert replacement in 2018, and that's a culvert that's on the south side of Hope Lutheran Church there at Corvera Road. Seven Hills Lake Culvert replacement. Seven Hills is on 75th Street, Blackfish Parkway, just between Corvera and Flum. Johnson Drive and Widmer Culvert repair and lining in Renner Road pipe under Shawnee Mission Parkway. Those are two older pipes that are beginning to see some disintegration. Several parks projects are included. Shawnee Scout Park, which is Shawnee Mission Parkway east of Neiman. That's a park that will develop out of the Neiman Now project just east of the Commerce Bank, where the old Ethiomart building used to be. And we have the two Shawnee Town projects. And we have 55th and Belmont Park Development. Purchased that ground about 15, 20 years ago, and we're looking to develop it. And then the East Riverside Park area, that's the Shawnee Sand and Gravel property that's on the east side of K7 north of 43rd Street. Also listed in the CIP are several fire department projects and other related projects. One is the construction of Fire Station 74, a parking structure at the Frank Goods Public Works Service Center, which is underway and almost completed, and then the master fiber build out. In the past 5 years, the Planning Commission has recommended the governing body consider sidewalk placement on 71st Street between Gleason and Clare on the CIP due to the development of Everett Park. Overall, the total cost of the projects in the plan is $169,757,441. The total cost of the projects in 2019 to 2024 is $136,085,445. Upon review of the 2019 to 2024 capital improvement plan, the Planning Commission shall forward any recommendations to the governing body and approve the plan as presented. That concludes staff's presentation.
Any questions for staff on this item? I have a couple questions, Paul. And I'm just guessing, so tell me, because I know little about this, but your total cost for street maintenance for 2018 is $5.4 million.
Yes.
Then it goes to $6 million, then $7 million plus, then back down a little, back up. I'm presuming those are projections, and that's based off sales tax?
Those are projections based off sales tax as well as collection of the special sales tax that we have for parks, pipes, and pavement.
Okay. So it's just interesting that one year somebody decided we were going to have a bit of a recession. In 2021, I'll mark my calendar accordingly then. The other question, stormwater management.
Mhm.
We have one project this year, Neiman Quarter. And after that, there are no funds from the county. Is that because we have to apply
Correct.
to get them? So those could be added in and would change the figures around for next
Those
year.
will add in as we develop projects and send them in for funding.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Wise?
Quick question. It mentions on here Johnson Drive and I-435 signalization. What does that involve?
We're looking at signalizing the ramps that are at that intersection. They're just getting to become a problem more for us. Yes, we've had more development out to the west. There seems to be more traffic headed that way than there generally is going east. So we just needed to do something to resolve that issue. And then also, we're anticipating we have a TIF district over on the Hodgson property, so we anticipate some development happening there. And then, of course, we have the proposed mixed use that we anticipate on the east side, south of Johnson Drive. So just get those signals in place so we can manage our traffic better at that location.
Commissioner John Smith?
I would second that. Johnson Drive, 435. I drive that coming down here, and it's really getting difficult to get from 435 on Johnson Drive down. I wanted to ask you, though, about Monticello, the new library that's being built. People that access that from Monticello, it's 2-lane, there's no sidewalks. Is there any chance of that being pushed up on this?
The governing body is taking a look at trying to use some funding sources that we currently have to improve some crosswalks at that location there at Hilltop and Shawnee Mission Parkway.
Does that also involve, isn't there a gas line down there somewhere that may have to be moved?
All the easements and everything related to the Monticello Road project's been taken care of. What actually happened with Monticello Road in 2007, we were looking at doing the improvements at that time. We had acquired all the easements that we needed and negotiated with Southern Star the work that needed to be done, and some of it was done. Then the economy took a hit, and I guess thank goodness we really hadn't issued the bonds for that project. So this is one that just takes a minor review of the plans that we already have drawn before it can go, so we don't have that long drawn out process of the project design.
Commissioner Braley?
Yeah, so I guess here we are again a year later, and I have to again express my disappointment that the city can't seem to find the way to understand why it's important for residents to be able to walk to Erfurt Park. It's just beyond me. So again, I'm going to vocalize my disappointment in that respect, that can't seem to get on our 5-year plan to at least get a sidewalk. I've had many real estate agents that live in our area approach me and say, Randy, do you realize that our walkability index is a 0? I can see the park, but yet I still get a walkability index of 0. That's important to real estate agents selling houses in the area. It adds money to the value of the homes. So again, that's my disappointment. Thank you.
Any other questions or statements for the staff? If not, is there a motion to approve the CIP with any additions? Commissioner Roth? I guess I should back up here and say, Commissioner Braley, do you propose that we vote on that being added to it, or do we have to vote on it, or we just add it as part of the remarks?
As part of you can do it as part of your recommendation. You can recommend approval of what you see plus any other project that you have.
Commissioner Braley, would you like to make this motion?
Yes, I would. All right, hang on. Let me calm down here a little bit. I'd like to make a motion to approve the capital improvement plan with the addition of adding a sidewalk along 71st Street between Clare and Gleason for access to Erford Park.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second on the motion? Commissioner Wise?
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the CIP plan with the addition of a sidewalk on 71st Street. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. Now we're into other business. Doug, you're back with us again.
My part of this will be very short.
Would you write your name legibly, too?
This is an informational item, so no action is required. This is regarding construction of a new water tower by Water One. So in partnership with the city, Water One will be constructing a new 3 million gallon elevated water tank at the Western Public Works Service Center. The new tank will be constructed at the extreme southwest corner of the storage yard to the south and west of the existing salt barn. Subject property is zoned planned industrial. Properties to the north and east are also zoned PI and contain the sanitary landfill. Properties to the south and west are zoned agricultural and are shown as being appropriate for warehouse and light industrial development. I do have a photo. This isn't the actual tower, obviously. This is one at their Water One office. It's somewhat representative of what we will have on our property once it's completed. The concrete base of the tower is located 65 feet from the south and west property lines. The overall height of the 3 million gallon tank will be approximately 110 feet. The concrete pedestal height and diameter will be approximately 35 feet and 64 feet respectively. And that's reversed from the report that you have in front of you. The steel bowl height and diameter will be approximately 75 feet and 155 feet respectively. On completion, the water tower will be similar in appearance to the existing towers located at Renner Road and Metcalf Avenue, and those photographs are in your packet. As part of the location agreement with the city, Water One will be constructing new material storage bins and a street sweeper discharge facility in the maintenance yard. Also, because new water lines will need to be installed to supply the tower, Water One will also be providing cable conduit during this installation to allow city fiber optic to extend westward over to Woodland Drive. We have some very patient staff members from Water One who are here to answer any questions that you might have about operation, the impact on the surrounding area in terms of pressurization and water provision. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you, Doug.
Good evening. 9:30. My name is Michelle Worth. I'm the Director of Production for Water One. Address 7601 Holiday Drive, Kansas City, Kansas 66106. I have Eric Arner, our General Counsel, also the Director of Legal and Audit, here with me. And then Jim Winger is our consultant with Black & Veatch, who has worked on the design itself and can provide additional details as well as requested. This particular tank here, I just want to clarify a little bit. The picture, the photo that you have is of our Renner elevated tank at our administration office at 10747 Renner. And that tank in particular is a 2 million gallon tank. The height itself is 213 feet to the overflow. Pedestal diameter is 46 feet. And the bowl diameter is 89.5 feet. So in regards to what the tank at the other site will look like, this particular tank is twice as tall as the tank that's proposed. The bowl on the new tank will be 25% wider, and the pedestal will be 40% wider. So it'll be shorter and rounder in diameter. And so I just wanted to give some perspective there. I do have some photos of what that might look like. If you're interested in seeing that, I would have to load it. Okay. And I have some handouts. I have some handouts here too. Now, let's see if technology works. I have on, I do. That's passed out. Oh.
Thank you.
Bear with me. No, that's okay. I'll do that. It'll I just have used some. Oh. That help? Oh.
3 million gallons.
So, the photos that are listed here are on page 15 of your packet. And the one that is most similar to what we will be building is the upper left corner, which is Belton, Missouri. So you can see that in Belton. It's a 3 million gallon tank with a 113 foot to the overflow. And what we were talking about is about 110 feet to the overflow, so similar. It's got a 111 foot diameter, and the diameter that we're talking about is approximately 115 feet in diameter. And then the pedestal diameter is 60 feet, and our pedestal diameter for the new tank will be 64 feet. So, and I think that gives good perspective too, as far as, you know, there's trees in front of this particular property as well, and there's the service center there. So I think that will give you a good understanding of what it might look like. The other ones that are pictured are Topeka, Kansas is a 3 million gallon tank. Again, its height is 111 feet, so very close to what we are proposing. The other two are Mesquite, Texas and Carrollton, Texas, both 3 million gallon tanks as well, similarly sized in diameter. Any questions? I had a lot of
Any questions?
information in your packet, so I'm happy to go through anything you'd like me to go through.
Commissioner Peterson?
Of course I have a question.
Of course.
I'm noticing that you're having a lot of explanations in here, but in a nutshell, elevated versus underground.
Sure.
And does this mean that my water pressure is going to get better in Shawnee? No?
So,
Only if I use gravity? I mean, why? You're already making me like show me slow and
okay, so just to give you a little discussion about tank elevations and tank heights and kind of what it means with pressure. So you can see on this particular site, or this particular drawing shows kind of where Stump Park would be, and then how high a tank might be, which is not really structurally realistic, but gives you an idea as to, right, the water level equals the pressure in the tank, and it needs to be at that altitude to get the pressure throughout the system. So that's why we build elevated tanks. And at this particular site, the Public Works site, what's nice about it is it's already a very high elevation. So that's that 985 elevation for the ground elevation. So then the tank isn't quite as tall. So that's why the pictures previously show kind of a smaller height. It's rounder, but again, that's the 110 feet that we're discussing. It gives the same water pressure as if it would be at Stump Park and 270 feet tall. So that's very important. Our typical pressure, our service level goals are anywhere between 40 PSI to 125 PSI. So at the higher ground elevations that are within that service area, it would be between 48 and 60 PSI. And as you go lower ground elevations, the pressure actually goes up. So that would be between 104 and 125 PSI in those areas. So it really depends on where the house is as and where the ground level elevation is as to what pressure you receive. But the importance is that we want to maintain the pressure within those ranges, and we want to ensure that we have fire flow in particular for the area, and that we're able to service the area on those peak hours. We're continuing to see an increase, in particular in this area, on those high use times, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. this time of the year when the sprinklers kick on. So, and then in the evening when people come home, and they're also out watering. So that is extremely important for us to maintain those service levels, and that's why we're providing this tank in this particular area to serve our customers and your citizens.
Any other questions for
So the elevated versus underground, sorry. The elevated tank is actually a greener solution. It's quieter. It's less cost of ownership for us in that there's no mechanical equipment or systems required. It also, again, provides emergency storage for fire conditions, and then it doesn't have the need for any generator capacity or pumping units. So if the power goes out, we still have that water available during a power outage.
Terrific. So your pumps will pump it full, but if the power goes out, we'll still have it because of the elevation.
Correct, because
Okay.
it'll already be up in the air and be available for that pressure.
Question. I have a question for you. In West Shawnee, west of K7, do I remember that there's been some issues with water pressure out there? Does this water tower service that area after 2022?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm actually going to have Jim come up and talk a little bit about our master plan and some of that area.
So we have
but
had
that's
water issues out there, but but they got to dig up and put new pipes in before it's solved. Is that what I'm
For some
understanding?
of the larger homes that were constructed out west, they had to do fire suppression sprinkler systems because the water delivery, and I don't want to pretend to be the fire marshal, but the water delivery through the hydrant wasn't enough gallons per minute to satisfy fire code. So, and that was based on water delivery, I think, more than pressure.
Very fine. Thank you, Doug.
Okay, so the far west of the Northwest RPA would be served by the tank. So that's the reduced pressure zone. So that's like the Kansas River, correct? So past that point, this tank would not serve. So your Mize Road and 83rd, is that where you were talking? That's kind of like yeah. So there are some restrictions with lines and service lines out there, and we are continuing looking at that with our master plan, and we'll continue to make adjustments. Just like you have a capital improvement plan, we also have a master plan to ensure that we're continuing to upgrade and use and look at that. But typically development pays for itself. So, just like in your city where if there's an extension or there's additional development or services required, that would then upgrade the line.
So can you tell me then where it is on your capital improvement plan? Because this is going to take until 2022 for this one to be done. If we're experiencing water issues that are attributable to Johnson County Water District out in Mize area, then can you tell us where that one might set on your capital improvement plan? I'm sorry?
Sorry, Jim Winger, Black and Beach.
My name is Jim Winger.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sorry. Certainly, you can't address localized areas where maybe the water mains are undersized by raising the elevation of this tank, because you would subject a lot of your constituents to excessively high pressures. So the focus needs to be on upsizing those mains. At this point in time, there is a lot of what we saw as excess pressure in a lot of the northern part of what's called the Northwest RPA. So I would like to maybe get some more specific information, if you could share that, where these complaints are with regards to low pressure, and then we can focus on that area and take a look at that a little closer.
We can have our fire marshal talk to them.
Terrific. The city staff will take care of that. That was more curious for me that it does take time to do these. So I'm wondering, okay, 6 years from now, maybe it might be addressed. Terrific. Any other questions for the staff? I have one more. I love your pictures on page 15. You know what? You know what the one you're showing us doesn't have?
What?
The name of Shawnee on the thing.
Oh.
Who the hell cares about Johnson County Water? Are we able?
Water one.
And is it something that staff would consider to put Shawnee on it? I mean, realistically, you're going to see this from 435.
John Deere green.
Well, I would certainly hope we have the city of Shawnee spelled out on there, because I grew up in small town America, and that's how you knew where you were. You look
It's a
up
good
the water
landmark,
tower.
isn't it? Yes.
That's how you knew.
What I would say is, I'll let Eric speak to it in just a moment, but our agreement does allow for that. We are receiving bids on this Wednesday, the 23rd, on the tank itself, and we'll have a better understanding of the logo costs and have made provisions for that should the city wish to do so. And it would have to be a joint effort between Water One and the city, and a joint agreement as to what is put on the tank.
So you're saying it's complicated?
Well, I'm just saying that the provisions are available within the contract.
Thank you. Commissioner John Smith?
A quick question. I noticed part of Johnson Drive is blocked off out there. Is that part, and they're putting a water line in, is that part of this project, or is that something different?
Johnson Drive, that's not tough. I guess there's no part of Johnson Drive that is removed. What is shown in the pictures are actually our water line easements and where the water lines will go. Yes, there is a city project to, I think, do a mill and overlay and some storm drainage in there, and we are coordinating with the city on that because part of our pipeline will be placed along Johnson Drive, and we have some additional easements that we're also obtaining for that water line to serve the tank. So that I know that we are coordinating that between Water One and the city at this time.
Now, you have one lane of Johnson Drive going west that's blocked off, and it looks like you're laying a water line along that. It's west of the Public Works facility there.
I know there is storm sewer that's being done.
You may be seeing concrete pipe being laid to replace corrugated metal pipe that's failed in that area. It's one of our stormwater, basically correction projects that they've funded.
Another question? Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation, and I hope Shawnee gets to be on the side of that. Of course, what I think is really not that damn important, I know. Does any of the commission have anything for staff? Does staff have anything for us wonderful commissioners who are setting up here? We're at a standoff then.
I move for adjournment.
Commissioner Willoughby, would you like to say something?
I move for adjournment.
Is there a second? Commissioner Montgomery, there's a
Second
second
that.
from. Everyone in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Motion carried. Thank you all.
Sick, but I'm kind of sick. I need to drink whatever you guys are drinking before you arrive here, I guess.
Drink that coffee. By the way, thank you very much. I was like, I could have kicking the other.